And yes, we are live. And so we shall go. Farida, I really want to welcome you. I'm thrilled to be having this conversation with you. You're a very brave journalist. And you know, let's kick this off with the latest news. Marco Rubio, American Secretary of State, saying for the first time that the United States is prepared to walk away from peace talks with Ukraine and Russia if it's just not possible. Reports also that some sort of deal, maybe one could argue, looks like it's squeezing Ukraine a bit, was discussed in Paris yesterday. Your sources are deep inside Russia, deep inside, in some cases, in the Kremlin. You know, what are you hearing from the Russians about all this?
Yeah, first of all, Vicky, thank you so much for your kindest words, and I really appreciate your, you suggested us to do this live. It's my first time. It's an experiment for me, so yeah, I'm very excited. Yeah, speaking about the Rubio comments today, they actually, it's kind of curious, but not really unexpected that. There was also J.D. Vance's comment, and he said that at the same time, it was also today's comment that he's very optimistic about the peace perspective. U.S. Russia-Ukraine peace. So it's pretty chaotic again.
It's mixed messaging, right?
Yeah.
At least from the United States.
Yeah, true. Yeah, but what I'm making of this Rubio comment is that it actually, it's I guess it's really the first time when the someone from American side acknowledges that the U.S. That Ukraine Russia conflict is not some simple affair that can be negotiated like in 24 hours or
yeah.
100 days or some like just the quick peace is not something that can be accomplished in this very complicated conflict.
Yeah.
And but on the other hand, what people in Russia, who I spoke to, some of my sources in the Russian system, they expected this kind of losing temper, losing patience from American side, from Trump's side in particular. Because he's clearly an unpredictable leader, and what he makes of this, the complicated process of Ukraine-Russian negotiations was unpredictable, and they. Russia on the Russian side, and we wrote about this a couple of weeks ago, that Putin himself, behind closed doors, told Russian most influential people, top-ranking officials and businessmen, the richest people in Russia, that these negotiations not going to be easy, and that the peace and even a ceasefire might not be achieved actually at all. So this cautious feeling.
Very different messaging, that, right, from what we've been hearing, certainly from the United States.
Well, it was kind of same actually from the Russian side, which also surprised me today that there are a lot of comments from the U.S. side, but in Russia, and I think that not a lot of people in America realize that this whole subject is actually it's occupied by only like the top Russian officials, and until Putin doesn't say what is his position, they are not allowed to talk much. So today, only the Kremlin press secretary Dmitry Peskov, Putin's press secretary, he commented on Rubio's
Yes.
and he said that, which was also kind of unexpected, that he acknowledged that the whole process is pretty difficult, which, I mean, they too tried to cultivate this the U.S. side, saying that in accordance, speaking in accordance with them, that the negotiation process, that those meetings that are very productive and very positive, and that there's a way to sort things out, and that everything's going well. But today we've heard from two sides already that that they kind of at least maybe starting to acknowledge the reality.
Well, is it not the case that I get from your reporting over the last 2 years that there's a little bit of skepticism, right? I think in your reporting that it would be in Putin's interest politically to have a peace with Ukraine. The war is good for him politically. I mean, can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, how much of this war was a strategy for Putin to stay in the number one spot running his own country?
Vicky, you're absolutely right. The main thing to understand, and it's not something that anyone will tell you. I mean, because obviously it's something that you can only analyze. No one in the Russian actually knows, like truly knows. I mean, there's very few people in Putin's closest circle who do not have any connections with journalists who can tell you that they know for sure what's on Putin's mind, because as you know for sure, Putin is one of the the world's like one of the leaders who is like the least public, I guess.
Yeah,
I mean,
and very deliberately cryptic, I think.
Yeah, and only a small bunch of people actually know what's on his mind, and especially with this war, which was and this is still called a special military operation, so something limited and small and very sudden. I think that, but for me, still, it's the main thing to understand about the Putin's intentions with his initial intentions with his war is that I think you have to realize that by the moment when he started the invasion, it was 22 years already of him being in power in Russia. So more than 2 decades. It's 25 years in 2025. He had to. He knew perfectly well that. Of course, he has like massive propaganda channels, and the most of the Russian population listens to this propaganda, even if they don't want to. But it's just ubiquitous. You cannot escape that in Russia, and it's everywhere. It's not just TV. It's all over the place. And but still, it's really hard to hide this fact that it's been more than 20 years of you in power. And he had to create some sort of agenda for himself for remaining in power further until the end of this day, I believe. I mean, I think that he's not going to go anywhere, even if the war stops tomorrow. We're not going to get rid of Putin, for sure, and he's not going to go anywhere until he's, I don't know how I guess until his death. So that's our reality. So yeah, this war was I mean, there's a lot of course, there's a lot of makeup and decoration, the ideological stuff that he puts out. That there's this historical need of Russia to combat this NATO expansion, and that Ukraine never was a free country, a sovereign country, that it's always been a part of Russia, etc., etc. And this, of course, he has to put this makeup on because, he has to persuade people of Russia and the entire world that there's some sort of reasoning to invade another country. But the main point is, of course, creating the agenda to make himself irreplaceable. So that's how it is, in my opinion.
And so, what do you hear from your sources then about his relationship with Donald Trump? Because we in America hear Donald Trump's perspective on that, but what is Putin's perspective on Trump? I mean, is it as I sort of got the impression from the piece you wrote, is it the case that he thinks he can sort of string him along, or does he really think that he and Trump could do a deal that might benefit Russia, that he and Trump together can squeeze Ukraine? Because that's one way you could read the latest news coming out of Paris.
Yeah. Well, Putin is not being, very transparent.
Yes, obviously.
Because it's he since January 20, he shows up in public less often, and he's clearly less involved into domestic affairs.
So let me ask you what. So why is that? So when did he stop showing up in public? What year did you say?
First it started in February. So the February was the month when they published. The Kremlin started. It's a common practice for Kremlin, but you just you can. It's unfortunately it's the way how we Russian journalists have to analyze and understand what's going on. Not the direct signs. Right, not the direct words or actions, but this, signaling from the Kremlin and in indirect signs. So, when the Kremlin starts to publish the one-on-one meetings, it means that these meetings, like almost 100% of time, are pre-recorded. So they are made to be published every day, creating this image of Putin being busy with internal affairs, while in reality nobody knows. I mean, the public doesn't know what he's really busy with and what he's actually doing.
So explain this. So just so I understand. So you're saying the February 2022, the month of the invasion, was when behavior changed. So is this when he was more absent, and then these pre-recorded videos came out?
I was actually talking about this February 2020.
This February,
after the inauguration, after Trump's inauguration.
Yeah.
So we can, and by that we can judge that he and there were other signs that he was busy with U.S.-Russia negotiations behind closed doors. It was not all public. There was a call official call between Trump and Putin, of course, but it was, and there were two calls actually already. Last being like really a month ago, after which this whole ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine established. And it ended yesterday or today. So 30 years have passed. Yeah, sorry for this minor digression, but yeah, so he disappears and is busy with all kinds of things that we don't actually know. But then he shows up, and we can judge by that what he was doing this whole time. For example, I know last year after Joe Biden allowed Ukrainians to use this long-range missiles deep into Russian territory, he disappeared for like a week or even more, and then he showed up with this new, so-called new, we're not sure yet if it's really new, Russian long-range missile that is used. So he basically threatened all this, and it was clear that he was busy with this issue this whole time while he disappeared. And here with Trump, what we have is him disappearing again, and then showing up only to, signal something that was he's been doing this whole time, and I mean, of course, not all of it, but some of it. We have only glimpses of what's really going on between them. So. This whole disappearing thing is Putin's classic, and he doesn't. But still, he doesn't. We can judge by his rare appearances and his rare statements on his approach to Trump. But also, if we keep this puzzle with what our sources are saying, so the Putin's approach to Trump right now is pretty simple. He knows very well that Trump and his administration, that they do not have wide and profound background and knowledge of the actual conflicts between Ukraine and Russia. That these people they want a deal, and they say it explicitly, and that they are not really deeply that they do not know what even are the positions of both sides and what the history of this conflict, etc. And it shows actually. We can tell that by what Steve Witkoff says, Trump's special envoy. And what they're trying to do, what Russian side and Putin himself is trying to do, is to sort of charm Trump into a deal, into ending the war on Russia's terms. Using this lack of knowledge, lack of background, and lack of interest actually into this whole political part of it. Because we see that U.S. administration and Trump himself, they kind of trying to avoid and neglect and even forget this whole the whole history of the conflict, and that there is a political side of it, and they just want to make a deal like this is some sort of, I don't know, business I don't know, negotiation, business affair. You know what I mean? While in reality is far more complicated. So what our sources basically been saying all this time, that Putin's clearly trying to trick Trump's administration with all sorts of tricks, like, I don't know, playing with Trump's ego, making him like a compliments, giving him the gifts. I don't know if you remember, but Steve Witkoff actually brought a gift from Putin to Trump. It was Trump's portrait, So, I mean, Putin clearly tries to manipulate he knows very well that he's very much aware of the scale of Trump's ego and tries to play with it. In an attempt to again push his own terms with this negotiations, but at the same time, Yeah, as I said before, he understands that it might not play out. Of course, it's worth trying, because no matter what a lot of people say, I mean, politicians and sometimes experts, that the Putin can wage this war like for 100 years, and this is what our sources say too. But it doesn't mean that.
Your sources say that
Yeah, yeah, he can wage this war further for like 100 years, this war of attrition. But it doesn't mean that that Russia is not tired of this war, that Russian army and Russian economy is not drained, and it's but still the main thing is that politics is always first in Putin's mind, and the economy and all other issues there are secondary, and that's why, of course, he will wage this war no matter what happens in Russia. I mean, inside of Russia, no matter what happens with the economy.
which is, of course, directly antithetical to Trump's way of thinking, where everything, I think, as you say correctly, is a business deal first,
Yeah.
and the politics possibly comes second. And let me ask you, I mean, something we talked about when you and I met in person briefly. I mean, I think there are people around President Trump who think that one of the reasons that he is bending over backwards to try to accommodate Putin is because President Trump's number one concern is China, and he would and that he would like to do anything he could to drive a wedge between the China-Russia alliance. What does your reporting tell you about Putin's relationship with President Xi?
This is a really common point of view, but I think it's really important to. Of course, I'm no China expert, and it is obvious that this is a really complicated subject. I mean, the Chinese foreign policy and relationships with Russia, but I think it's really important. And yeah, we can see that in Russia. A lot of influential people, and they actually sometimes say it publicly. They are very concerned of growing dependence of Russian dependence of China
On China.
Yeah, and but yeah, I mean, this whole subject of detaching Russia from China. What you have to keep in mind when you think about it, that Russia and China have the longest border between each other. It's really long, and they are neighbors, and this is really I think it's nearly impossible, to detach one country from another, and because they're again they're closest neighbors and partners, and of course China is not directly supporting Russia's position and in Russia itself and in the war against Ukraine, and it tries to avoid the secondary sanctions that the U.S. is trying to the U.S. imposing on China over this. In this conflict, still, China is very cautious, but detach it from Russia would be, I mean, it's nearly impossible. So I don't think that this is I don't know, a realistic goal for the U.S. administration.
And let me ask you something that you talked to me about when we met for dinner in New York. This Putin moving the Kremlin's timetable, changing. So when he's not absent, right, this idea that he's now starting his days much later to close the time gap, but the 7-hour time difference between Washington, D.C. and Moscow. I mean, I'd never heard that before. So can you walk us through sort of what happened and when?
Yeah, this is actually pretty funny. It would be funny if it weren't so important and dramatic. There's a huge time difference between Moscow and Washington. But we've seen for last few months, starting again January 20th, when Trump's inauguration happened and he came to power fully, that Putin started to change his schedule, trying to adapt to Washington time. So, we know that from all these years Putin being in power, that he's definitely not an early bird. He stays up late, and he might sleep until noon, it's his usual schedule, but still it was pretty remarkable that, and it was really actually noticeable that lots of meetings, even meetings that were not like directly involved directly linked to the U.S.-Russian relationships or Ukraine conflict. He started postponing these meetings until late Moscow time. So
Right.
it was actually really uncomfortable for us as journalists, because we had to kind of adapt too. So first you work according to Moscow time, and then you have to also work Washington time. And it's been happening lots of times since end of January. For example, when there was this first meeting of when French President Macron came to the US and met with Trump at the Oval Office, and they were talking about
Ukraine.
Ukraine conflict. Putin started by Moscow time it was late evening. But he started a meeting. And there was this. There were first talks about Ukraine U.S. minerals deal. And what Putin did was that he started this simultaneously with Macron-Trump press conference. He started his own meeting with Russian government and made a few points and few. He basically offered publicly to Trump and Trump's administration another deal as opposed to what they were talking with Ukraine, the deal with Russian minerals.
So he's doing it. He's doing it simultaneously, is what you're saying?
Yeah. That time he did it simultaneously, but other times he simply, makes his statements during his public appearances directed to Trump, and it's pretty clear. I mean, because of the timing, because of the message, and the things that he says, and it's pretty remarkable, and I don't know. I'm not sure that he ever did that before. I mean, this whole, the schedule shift. And also, one thing that I would also mention is that, so basically there's this Russian constitution. The Russian president is obliged by Russian constitution to annually address Russian parliament. and Russian actually establishment as a whole in general. This is how those things work in authoritarian Russia with its authoritarian constitution. But still, you kind of obliged to make this address every year. And this is a major address that Russian establishment is focused on every year, because president usually makes the major political statements, and he kind of describes the economical situation and the goals for the next year. So it's a pretty big, it's a pretty big thing for Russian ruling class. But it had to be so he had to address the end of February, as it was the year before, but he postponed it. He delayed it and it's not clear when it's going to happen. And what our sources are telling us, but it's actually kind of obvious if you've been following Russian, if you've been following Putin and Kremlin and the whole thing, US-Russia thing going on, that he has done this on purpose. Because there are more important issues going on, because there's a war and peace negotiations, because there's a need to talk to Trump and his administration all the time, and to also improve Russian army positions on the battlefield, etc., etc. So there are more important things linked to the war and to foreign affairs than internal Russian stuff, and he basically neglected his constitutional obligation to make this address. And this is, I think this shows the level of influence of what's going on between US and Russia on Russian domestic issues, on what's going on inside of the country. So the president basically cancels his constitutional address because, and this is what our sources say, that because it's not clear what's going to happen between US and Russia, and it's not clear, therefore, that how life's going to be in Russia. And we will only understand this after there will be some sort of deal or no deal with Trump, and this will be the major thing that will determine Russia life in Russia for the next year, at least the next year. So yeah, I think this is pretty significant sign of the importance of the moment.
And in the meetings, obviously Putin has been in some of them, not in others. Who is the most influential Russian politician? Is it Kirill Dmitriev? Who is the lead negotiator?
Oh, the lead negotiator is Putin himself.
But not in all of them, because in some of the meetings in Saudi Arabia.
Yes, for sure. He's not present, physically, but be sure that all of his envoys, each and every one of them, they do not have any agency. They do not have any freedom to even negotiate the smallest details without agreeing with Putin himself. So the main brain behind this whole thing, from Russian side, is Putin himself, and he controls what his envoys do and say very, very carefully. So the Russian envoys their role is really instrumental. It's very technical. So yeah, I think, I don't know if it's same with Trump administration, but and with Marco Rubio or Steve Witkoff, but it's for sure the configuration is 100% like this with Russia. His envoys only convey what he told them to, and he's the leader of the entire process.
So let me ask a little bit about you and your story, because I think it's helpful for people to understand a little bit the climate in Russia. You were a journalist working for a variety of small but independent outlets. Well, the BBC is not small, but maybe small in terms of reaching audiences in Russia. And you had to leave in February of 22, not because you did anything, but because what you had already written and reported suddenly became illegal. That's correct, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So maybe you should explain to the readers. I mean, what had you reported that suddenly became illegal?
Yeah, so basically, in the first week of the war, Russian government introduced wartime censorship, making a lot of words, simply words, illegal. So the main thing was that if you called the war a war, you could go to prison for 7 or even 10 years sometimes. So yeah, this kind of censorship is the harshest that's ever been in Russia, and you just immediately became like all of the journalists who reported independently became illegal at this very moment when this legislation was adopted. So the circumstances were that Russian government basically said that you cannot report anything about this war other than other than what Russian government has said in its press releases. So you just no independent reporting was banned literally. So yeah, I didn't want to go to jail, and I just had to leave Russia, like hundreds of my colleagues from other independent outlets, just in order to not to go to jail and to continue our work, because it was impossible in Russia.
It's not so easy then, right, to just leave and set up in another country, because then so you went to Georgia, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
that turned.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say that this period, I'm 33, and I can tell you that this period, that period of time was yet the hardest of my life, because it was the sudden immigration, this need to build my life all over again and in a foreign country, and I didn't know where I mean, nothing was clear at that moment. Georgia was the country that it was easier in terms of visas, because they don't have visas for Russian passport holders, and lots of our colleagues went there. Same did I, and yeah, it's just. But then Georgia became unsafe because it's very close to Russia, and their government became become more pro-Russian. So yeah, and we had to immigrate again. So it's just I mean, you just never feel safe and settled down, and it's already been like 3 years since that sudden immigration. It's better now, but I mean, it's still very. I still feel very unsettled and anxious, because I mean, it's a fate that you would not certainly wish to anyone, any journalist, having to first move your home and leave your home, and then try to somehow report from the outside. It's a thing that it's. I mean, we're not the first. I mean, there are a lot of countries that journalists cannot work in, and like I don't know, Iran, Syria, Turkey, and other countries sometimes. But it's very it's really hard.
So then, and but even from, I think we can say it's okay to say you're in Germany somewhere. You are still able, though, to get to sources in Russia and still able to get your words into Russia.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's really it's very difficult, but and of course, me as the whole, as the part of the whole independent journalist community, we are marginal in terms of our influence on Russian public, but still we do have it. And even though lots of almost all of the known platforms such as YouTube or Facebook or Instagram are blocked in Russia. And I'm mentioning these platforms because in Russia, if you're an independent media, you cannot have your own platform, like your website, because it's going to be blocked immediately. So the only way we can try to reach audiences in Russia are mostly platforms. And we work mostly on, for our Russian audiences, we work mostly on Telegram, which is not blocked in Russia yet. It's the quickest way to reach Russian audiences because they don't have to use VPNs and other stuff to avoid those blockings. And yeah, well, in terms of sources, yeah, it's the remote work, as remote as possible. So you just,
and that must be very tricky, right? Because why would somebody who's got some sort of power, whether it's economic or political, or in Russia, want in this moment of time to speak to, want or trust somebody they can't see in front of them? I mean, that must be very difficult. I mean, I'm assuming you're working off relationships that you built a few years ago and relying on the trust that was built.
yes, yeah, you're absolutely right. So it's, I mean, the main thing to understand about how we work is that we know very little. We have very, very limited capacity to learn of what actually is going on. If we're talking about Russian government, right? Very, very limited capacity. And compared to the unknown, what we know is just small pieces, like the grains of knowledge. And it's really, really hard to get this knowledge from inside the system. And because again, yeah, you cannot, there's no place where you can meet your sources, right? You cannot go to some, I don't know, event in Moscow and meet someone and talk to him, I don't know, and learn something, right? And yeah, it's unfortunately we have to rely on just only old relationships, and it's becoming more and more toxic, of course. I mean, journalists are becoming more and more toxic to talk to, and this is the ongoing effort by Russian government. They're doing everything they can to make independent voices, independent journalists toxic and like basically, I don't know, untouchable. So, I mean, there are I would say that there are very few people in the Russian system who are still willing to stay in touch and sometimes tell something. And they're very precious, but they're very, very few. And yeah, it's really tough to oftentimes we cannot learn a lot of things even from them because they are too scared to talk about sensitive issues. So yeah, that's how it.
So it feels from everything you're saying that Putin's hold on Russia has never been stronger. It's very, very, very strong. I mean, there's no threat politically to him. He's you
Yeah,
know.
it's true. I mean, not that it's never been stronger. It's just it has been strong, and it is strong. I mean, political scientists usually say that the regimes like that, like the Russian regime, like this personalistic dictatorships, that they collapse of some very unexpectedly with some, from some unknown factor, which is, not very, not something that you can, hope for, and certainly it's just, yeah, it's unpredictable. But what we know, and it's clear that. Putin has built his system relying on the most powerful people in the country, and this is his law enforcement. Law enforcement, security services, these are the most powerful people in Russia. And there are millions and millions of them, and he has built his system around the interests of these people. And there, he puts enormous efforts into keeping them loyal to himself. So their grip on power is very, very strong. And even if, again, if the Ukraine war stops tomorrow, these people and Putin himself are not going to go anywhere. The situation in Russia will not get better. And I don't think that anyone cares about it. I mean, except Russians, but this is true. And Putin's not going to go anywhere. And yeah, it's.
So do you have any idea then when you report on, like your report last March about the meeting in the Kremlin with the Russian tycoons? Do you have any idea then inside Russia how many people read that?
Yeah, we know that 80% of our audience is in Russia. And yeah, I mean, there might not be like tens of millions of people, but there are lots of them. So I can tell you that our channel on Telegram, it has on average like 2 millions of views every month. It's not a lot. I mean, lots of American media, I'm sure, have this 2 million views. I don't know, in a few hours of an average workday. But the situation in Russia is very different. So yeah, I mean, the joint audience of Russian independent media it's estimated as it's really hard to estimate it, but the current estimation is like around 20 million people, which is not that bad.
No.
Yeah, it's not, of course, again, it's still marginal. I mean, if you try to make a ratio, right? But still,
Yeah.
yeah.
Gosh, Farida. So, and then I wonder, given that in this country we are living in very turbulent times, and you came here for the first time last month for 3 weeks. I'm curious to know, what was your takeaway about life in the United States right now?
Well, it was my first time in New York, not my first time in the US,
Okay.
but New York. Yeah. But still, I mean, it was the longest time I've spent in the US. So, I mean, it was really, I would say, interesting times, to be in the US. And I was a fellow at Columbia. And I was very, I was very concerned with this mood in Colombia. I saw among students and professors, it was clear that they are very, very anxious and disturbed by the things that are going on. And I felt really sorry for them because, as far as I understand, this attack on universities in the U.S. is very broad, and Trump's administration attacking almost like all of them and trying to bring them to heel. And this is it reminds me so much of what was going on in Russia. Because yeah, in Russia, almost all the major universities are state universities. It's the legacy of Soviet system.
Yeah.
And of course, Russian universities never, ever enjoyed this level of academic freedom that you guys in the US are having. But still, this attack on the university professors and students and the some sort of freedom in these places, it's something that Putin he has been doing this like for years. And students, especially in the last decade, students were one of the main target of the state in Russia. Because for Russian security services, these are young people who want change.
Mhm.
And this is the main threat that comes to the system from these people. The entire system in Russia is gerontocratic. It hates youth, it hates young people, and it hates when they are not subordinated to them. So they make everything they can, they do everything they can to control them. And and the crackdown, the final crackdown over independent media, like in the years right before the beginning of the war, it was simultaneous to what the Russian system was doing with the universities and students. And it's really heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking for me to watch kind of similar things going on in the US.
Wow. It's pretty powerful. And let me ask you this, in this, and yet here you are. I mean, what made you want to become an independent journalist in Russia 10 years ago? I mean, it's not a well-paid job, and it's very risky. Why? What drove you to do it?
I started my career. I still was a student back in 2012, and this time, the beginning of the early 2010s in Russia, it was the time when um, there was it was a huge political turbulence because Putin decided. It was the moment when he decided to. I mean, uh, when it was clear that he's gonna change constitution to stay in power forever. Technically, it happened in 2020, but he was back after 2 terms and was going to go on another term, third term already. And it was really a shock for Russian people, and there were major protests, largest protests during Putin's rule, because millions of people were against it. And it was for me as a student at the time, and I studied journalism. It was it was like, I mean, the most interesting and exciting times, and I was fascinated by all things politics since then. And till this day, I remain, inspired by these people in Russia who want change, and there are actually millions of people, millions and millions of people, and I feel that it's my duty not to abandon them. And if I can do my job for them, reporting, giving them independent information, then I have to do this. And this is my main, I don't know, inspiration and thing that keeps me, moving on. Because, yeah, this job it's probably the least rewarding job. If you think about it, I mean, at least in Russia, or related to Russia, at least, well, now I'm exiled. So, yeah, I would say that our subscribers, our readers, and most of the people who want change, they are not abroad, they're inside of Russia. And there are millions of people, dozens of millions, I believe. So yeah, this is all, and I feel part of them, and that's why I cannot leave them, abandon them.
And so tell me about the Substack. So when did you start the Substack? And just so that our readers understand, so your readers in Russia, you put the same content from the Substack on the Telegram, so they see the same, or do you change it a little?
Yeah,
How does it work?
Yeah. I do change it because obviously things that are being written and edited for Russian audience, they not always they cannot. So the style and the whole approach of Russian journalism and journalism made for English speakers they're different, and you have to adapt for different audiences. But we decided to publish some of our pieces on Substack right after the beginning of the war, because we thought that this is something that should be spread around the world, because there was, at that particular moment, there was such a vacuum of information at the very beginning of the war. Nobody knew what was going on. Almost all the independent journalists were in the process of leaving the country. So literally there was no one to go and learn things. And that's how it all started, that we wanted to tell the world what was going on among the Putin's elite. And since then, it's been already 3 years. We've been publishing our pieces on Substack in English.
That means you needed to find a translator, right?
Yeah, translator and editor. Yeah, we do have.
Yeah. And it's probably helpful for readers who may not know to know that your partner left Russia with you. I mean, you do this together, and then there is now a translator to help you with the pieces that come to the West.
We work in a micro team. It's very, very small. But yeah, I mean, we publish all those things for free, but we have very limited options with our Russian audiences to earn some money for living, literally, because Russian government has done everything it could to detach us journalists, independent journalists, from our public. And there's literally no options to do any media business with your own readership, with your own subscribers. So yeah, that's the part of the reason of why we continue publishing our pieces in English, is to reach broader audiences who are more who can actually pay for our work, and who live in the more free societies than Russian people, for whom it's not a threat to support journalists, because in Russia it's a crime, literally a crime.
Yeah. Gosh, Farida. Well, I am going to wrap this up on that note, but I'm going to encourage everybody to reach out to Farida with questions and messages. And I hope, Farida, we can keep talking as things unfold. I'm sure there are going to be developments, quite what they'll be with between Trump and Putin. And, thank you for everything you do. And thank you very, very much for your time today. It's been a great pleasure.
Thank you so much for your interest and for your support. You cannot imagine how important it is for me and for people like me. So I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for doing this.
You're very, very welcome, Farida. Anytime. Take care, everybody. Happy Easter.
Bye.